You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. Glad to be back on the show. We didn't have a program last week because of the holiday, but the band is back together, and we've got, as it turns out, a really interesting political race to talk about. Let me introduce everybody. For those not familiar, Jasper Hendricks, Democratic strategist, current chair of the Metro Fair Board. Beside him, Steve Gill, local attorney. He is the publisher of TristarDaily.com. And did I say that right? Is it TristarDaily.com? Yeah. All right, but it's a conservative website, a lot of news. I check it out daily. Megan Lee Podsiedlik, nearest me, writes for the Pamphleteer, conservative commentator. Emily Couples, who was formerly the communications chair for the Tennessee Democratic Party, but now she has her own public strategies company. It's called Delta Public Strategies, and we were just hearing about one of her upcoming clients off air. So if you need some help, she can hook you up.
Keep it off air.
Of course, yeah. This is just talk among the folks. Now, this is something we can talk about on air because everybody else has been talking about it. Big election this past Tuesday. It was a quick run-up to it, 7th District congressional race, and there were 14 counties in Middle Tennessee. For a special election, turnout was reasonably good. Steve, let's start over here. The Republican nominee, Matt Van Epps, won. He's already been sworn in. I believe that happened on Thursday. But some say, on the GOP side, Robbie Starbucks among them, Tommy Lauren, hey, you didn't win by as much as you ought to, and that's some sort of a wake-up call for the GOP. Your thoughts?
Well, I think they're not very good at math. The Cook Political Report says this is a plus 10 Republican district. He won by 9 in a sprint, special election, lower turnout. Millions and millions of dollars pushed into it by the Democrats. And they're comparing Donald Trump's numbers, which he was running against Kamala Harris, who was a very weak candidate, or maybe Mark Green's last race against Megan Barry, who was a disgraced felon having sex in cemetery. So yeah, 20 points was about right for those. I think the 9-point here is not anything to be worried about.
Jasper, you were making faces the whole time, so I've got to come over there. The other candidate, Aftyn Behn, Nashville Democrat, state representative, youngest person in our General Assembly. She had not run for Congress or anything before, and the Democrats seemed, at least on the night, even though they were conceding the race, pretty happy about how things came out.
I mean, I think that Aftyn ran a great race. With the resources that she had available, she did knock on doors. She reached people that would not have typically been engaged in an election like this, which is a special election. And I think also, maybe paving the ground to help win some state legislative races. I think, we did not expect to win this race, just off the bat. We have to begin to start tilling the soil.
You talk about that a lot. You got to win somewhere first.
You have to win somewhere first, and we have to start building our ground game, because Tennessee, no matter how people look at it, Tennessee is not a red state. It's a state that does not vote. And so, and those people and the numbers, right, and the numbers of people who have not been engaged over the last few years have given way to the supermajority that we see here today. But it does not mean that it's the end of it doesn't mean that it's the end of the road. And that Democrats, I think, have actually begun to see that there's work that they need to do, and that people are looking for differences.
While we're talking about Aftyn Behn, let's switch over to our other Democratic pundit. I watched with interest as Aftyn Behn made her concession speech, and there was a lot of, to Jasper's point, exuberance at the fact that they had done as well as they had done, and to your point, looking toward the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aftyn, if you're watching, I want to thank you for stepping up and running, especially in a crowded primary field. You were the only woman, and there were a lot of naysayers, and you came out and ran a really great race. I would reject your premise that millions of dollars were poured in, because y'all outspent us almost 5-1, and we had
a lot of money in the race, to be sure.
Minimal dollars as Democrats, and the investment did not come in until the last 2 weeks of early votes. We did out-organize. Now, if you look at the numbers, if Williamson County had hosted their municipal election at the same time as this special election, Williamson County's leadership would completely have flipped to Democratic leadership. So Williamson County, especially in every other county, went significantly more blue. Historically in the state of Tennessee, a special election, Democrats way underperform. We actually don't perform. So turnout wasn't higher for Democrats because it was a special election. Turnout was higher because we had a populist candidate, and Tennesseans are sick and tired of what is happening in Washington and the Trump administration. And so this election, to me, was more of a referendum on where Trump has taken us as a country, as well as leaders in Tennessee on a national level are taking us. Now, I think Aftyn should run again in November. I mean, the race is 11 months away. I don't know if she will, but regardless of who the candidate is, I think they can definitely capitalize on it. And the organizing efforts put into this campaign will make the race tighter in November. Now,
please run, Aftyn. Please
it
run.
Is,
well, she will have to run in a primary, so we'll
please
see.
Run.
Yes, she would have to run in a primary. Now, the onus is on us, though, as Democrats. And in the past, I will say, and I will take blame that
of course,
the
she
party,
ran in the primary this time.
We have had momentum before, and the party has not capitalized on the momentum. Now, we have a good chair, we have a good executive director at the party. There were other C4 and PACs involved in this election, and now the responsibility on us is to continue to build on that momentum and run a race today that sets us up for success in November.
I would say this, we've got a lot of meat on this bone, and I don't want to interrupt you the moment I give you the mic. Let's take a break. We're going to pick up the conversation. When we come back, you're watching Nashville in Focus on Fox 17.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Welcome back, everybody. If you're just tuning in, we were discussing the outcome of the 7th District congressional race. And Megan Lee, we got you into it. I didn't want to start and have to break you. This was very interesting. You've written on it extensively. I read you virtually every day, too, like Steve. Your thoughts about the race, the way it played out, and everything that's been said since.
Well, to a little bit of what my friend Emily here said about being a populist candidate, I would say she's more of a socialist candidate. She really ran on that type of more progressive side of the ticket. This was something that was discussed during primaries, if she was going to have a viable chance against whoever the Republican nominee was. And I think that she did prove that her ground game is strong, especially in Davidson County.
She worked Clarksville a great deal, too, Montgomery County.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can't knock the effort. She was out there, and everybody saw that she was out there. She was doubling down on all the wrong things, but she was out there, and she really, really pulled every single person out that she could in this very special election that landed on a Thanksgiving break. And so I think that you can't knock her. She did a great job. You can't discredit her for any effort as far as that goes. But when we're looking at this district, I don't think that the Democrats really have a chance coming up this next election cycle. I think that that's a little bit of a pipe dream to think that this kind of indicates that there's some leeway that they could kind of edge their way into District 7. But of course, the Democratic Party is going to run with this, semi-less defeat and use this as momentum as they go into some of these more contentious races over battleground areas across the country. And that's what we should expect to see from the Democrats.
Well, in this particular case, neither one of the candidates was an incumbent. And with incumbency, there's always great benefits. Next time, Van Epps is going to have a little bit of an incumbency. But, to your point, it's only like 11 months away. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and keep in mind, she lost 13 out of the 14 districts. She carried the sliver of Davidson County. It's probably the more liberal part of Davidson County, so I don't really see the momentum. When you look at the national Democrats, you don't target congressional seats to try and flip them if they're not 2 points or less. You don't target a 9-point loss in a special when all the geography was actually against. Davidson County was a huge advantage for the Democrats. They had 6 early voting locations. Most of the rural counties had 1. You had to drive to the county seat, so you had a very depressed early voting.
Yeah, but there's no line.
Right.
Because it is more sparsely populated.
But you had to drive 25 miles in many cases, and if you're working in Davidson County, you couldn't get there before.
And
I think we all
that's
can
an
agree.
interesting fact
They didn't
from a
make it
state
easy.
that prides itself in election
Well,
integrity.
that's because the state
right?
doesn't invest in
Right.
That was
local election
and the Republicans
infrastructure.
didn't do that. They
And
did
I think
not
we all
do that.
agree on that we want more people to go
vote.
out and vote. That's
Yes.
absolutely.
But at the
It's a
end of the
big
day, we can talk
problem.
about 9 points, we can talk about 10 points, we can talk
Yes.
about 3 points. The difference is in the numbers. It was 16,000 vote difference. 16,000 vote difference in a district that has 700,000 people. You know, and so when you look at it, and that's why I say that it could be anybody's game. You know, if the right work is put in there. And again, Democrats, I don't think we're looking at potentially winning this particular congressional district in the near future. What does it mean for in these counties that you have state representatives and state senators who are winning their seats by 100 votes? Or less, or 200 votes or less, and we see those numbers. We've seen them.
Hardly a mandate.
Right? Those counties have shifted blue.
Well,
Or shifted. During this election, that means that there could be potentially wins. Where we could potentially look at breaking the supermajority.
I think Aftyn's majority in the primary was about 300 votes.
Well, all four of the candidates each took about 25%. Everyone was equal. I think the momentum is there for CD7, and the momentum from the CD7 race will carry over into CD5.
Is she the candidate for 7, though, moving forward? And I ask you, you're a Democrat, because that has to be a conversation right now. To Megan's point, is she the right candidate? Is she too liberal? Do we need someone who would attract more people from the other side, perhaps more easily?
I think she was the candidate that won the primary, and she won a really good race and organized well. I haven't seen anyone else organize in this district because we didn't get the chance to see them in the general. I think if someone is as unique as Aftyn and able to energize a base, then they have a fair shot in the primary. The thing is, though, no one can energize a base like Aftyn because of her demographic, right? She was a female. There were no other females in the primary. She's young. She's excitable. She comes from a policy background, so she's able to. She's excitable, so she's able to talk about policy.
Well,
but this was a special election.
Yes.
So we don't know if people there may have been people who are looking at the general election that we may see come up, and pop up, later because of their main focus was the general election. So there will be a primary. Yeah. So she's not necessarily will be the candidate next November. Then we're going to go through our process, which I'm sure there will be a primary on the Republican side. Even though Van Epps won this time, some people may see this as a weakness, with the turnout on that side, and say they may they may be looking for another candidate that is as excitable that could actually turn out, more voters in November.
And this primary is in August, so it's still a tight turnaround from your primary to your general. In the same sense that this primary.
Tennessee has a very small window between primaries and generals. That's been a problem for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and to everybody's point, whoever it is, especially on the Democratic side, if you're looking to challenge this now incumbent in Van Epps, you better get started essentially right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. You could be, but we don't know what's going to happen down the road. There are a lot of interesting things happening, across the country that could actually shift the way the electorate is going to go.
To that point, looking at the right side of the ticket, I hope that the Republicans, because just like you all are saying with the low voter turnout in Tennessee in general, there is a ground game to be won. And I don't think that you guys talk about the Democrats, we haven't seen them really come out. I don't think that we've really seen the Republicans come out. So I'd really like to see them learn about doing some more ground game.
This conversation is so good, I hate to interrupt, but I've got to squeeze in a break. We'll be right back. You're watching Nashville in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
It's not often we dedicate an entire show to a single topic, but I'm not sure we're going to get to anything else. I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's so much more meat on the bone, and there are, I guess, lessons to learn on both sides. Question I want to pose to the group. When he said, I accept the nomination, he essentially said, I got here with the help of President Trump, and I'm going to go up there and help him get his agenda. Where's the check and balance, in Congress, where you, the chief administrator, the executive, you propose things, we consider it and propose ideas. Is that happening at all, or is everybody just wrapping themselves in Trump and doing whatever Mr. Trump wants?
I think there's a couple things going on with that. As a politician, of course, you see lockstep, and I think that we don't always see that from the Republican Party as much as we see it from the Democratic Party. A case in point is right after the primaries in this race, everybody on the Democratic ticket, even though they kind of ran against each other, they really came together to push push for Aftyn Behn. I know that they all got together and had a discussion about how they can move forward and help her win. I think that in the Republican Party, there's more of an individualism sometimes. So I actually am looking forward to the fact that we're seeing candidates, especially coming up into a really contentious and potentially, groundbreaking election year in 2026, depending on what way the wind blows, that we do need to see some more consolidation on the Republican side of the ticket. I think that the message that Matt Van Etz put out there is he knew where the help came from, and he was giving credit to where that help came from, and made it very clear that he appreciated all of the support that he gained from Donald Trump in this race and how important it was for him to win, especially because it was so much closer than people expected, especially in early voting. So that's how I feel about that particular topic when it comes to this.
I knew you had a thought. I could feel it from
I think we're already seeing there are no checks and balances by the fact that he was sworn in before the election was even certified, which
Thursday, and
is
the election
illegal.
wasn't certified until Friday.
Today. So all the ballots still have not been
I did
counted.
notice that it was Steve Cohen who said to the Speaker of the House, you guys may have seen this on C-SPAN,
Okay,
Mr. Speaker, there's no contention that this race wasn't won by this individual, and we have no objection to him being sworn in. I did take notice of that, because Steve Cohen, if there's a bone, he'll pick it.
But at the risk of agreeing, they could have waited 2 more days.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
we as a country can't, and as a people, we should not ignore the policies and procedures and the integrity of elections, and that is what it says in the actual city charter's constitution, is that you have to certify an election before you swear someone in.
And that was done on Friday.
And so they certified the election today, but they swore him in on Thursday.
That's right.
And so I think we're already seeing he has no regard
And
for
there
checks
was a
and balances.
Democratic candidate whose, swearing in was held up. I don't believe that Congress was in session, so I don't know that, I believe it was a lady, I want to say New Mexico.
They were in session. There were no votes.
Okay, there you go.
So they were
I'm not sure there was harm,
they were in recess. They
but to your
recessed.
point.
You're right.
Right.
And
Yes.
so and that's the point, right? Like, so the rules. When do the rules really apply? And I think that's what we have a lot. And I actually kind of disagree with my friend Megan across the table about Democrats sort of coalesce together. No, we don't. And that's our problem.
Because if we did,
Right.
we wouldn't be in the state we are in the state.
We wouldn't be in it, and we don't.
Yeah.
And so and we kind of see it versus on the other side, how at the end of the day the Republicans are going to stick with the Republican candidate, where Democrats sort of venture out and have their own.
The GOP did get behind Van Epps after it
I
was
do
decided.
think in the state of Tennessee, there may be some fracturing amongst the GOP a little bit, and then Sexton and McNally will, kind
There's
of bully them
certainly a
into line.
grassroots.
I've got to squeeze in a
establishment
break, ladies. I hate to,
fraction.
but we're going to pick up the conversation right here. You're watching Nashville in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
All right, we're going to do it. This is going to be a one-topic show. Aftyn Behn, the state lawmaker, now has to go back to work in January. Steve, how do they see her? And I ask you because the speaker is a Republican. Is she going to get on any good committees, or they're going to make sure she doesn't?
I think she'll stay exactly where she is. I think she'll have the exact same impact she's had, not having passed anything. The Democrats are in super minorities in the State House and the State Senate. And her activist AOC of Tennessee isn't going to play in Tennessee outside Davidson County. Again, she lost 13 of 14 counties. 9 points is not a narrow loss, and I think she's not going to carry any momentum forward. But please, Aftyn, run again, please.
Jasper, truthfully, and you've been involved in lots of campaigns over the years, when you can bash a candidate with their own words, it's effective, and she provided quite a bit of ammunition for her opponent.
She did, and I actually would not have responded in the way that she did in a couple of them, like especially with the whole, I hate Nashville, I hate country music.
But she sang on election night.
Well, she was, because I think personally, if I was working on her campaign, there would have been a different response, because and I would say number one, it was taken out of context. I think people are putting Nashville in a narrow box, that people have to remember. Yes, Nashville is big on country music. However, that's not what makes us Music City. Music City is because of Fifth Jubilee singers, and flipped the script on them. And said that I think that I was saying that to say that people are putting us in a box. We're not just country music. We're not just bachelorettes. We're not just this. We are more than that, you know. And for people to put it, you know, but I wasn't on the campaign.
It might have
I actually
gone away
watched
more
election night
quickly
on
had she
television.
responded
Her
in that fashion.
indignation it put a bad taste in people's mouths, and I know that she tried at the last minute on the last day on election day to reconcile it by coming out in Western wear and to 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton, but it wasn't enough.
It was too late by
and it
then.
seemed too kitschy, and it's too little too
It
late.
was,
I
yeah.
mean, and you know what, but it doesn't really matter here or there. This is just more of a personal taste thing, but it just kind of goes back to lockstep of maybe she could have done something a little bit more, reached out a little bit and less contentious. She was very kind of self-righteous in how she just like rejected the premise when people were bringing this stuff forward. So I agree with you.
What would you have said to her had you been advising?
I have known Aftyn maybe 10 years, and she's from Knoxville.
That's right.
And she's been a big Dolly Parton fan. She's done a lot of political theater. She actually is known to dress up in costumes before she was a lawmaker. And so I think to wear Western wear and pay homage to Dolly Parton is actually where she's from. And if you've met her family and her parents, which I have, you would say this actually is Aftyn authentically.
Don't you wish she would have said that?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
someone else would have been put forward to say, look, I've known her 10 years, here's the true thing, and here are the pictures.
Yes, and obviously I wasn't on the campaign, so
Sure.
and none of us were. And I think some people tried to do that, but I think it's very hard in a quick election cycle, and you're in a special. I think Aftyn, I would reject the premise that maybe Steve may have had, that she hasn't been effective at the State House, because we actually have seen her be effective. And she's the one that pushed forth the grocery tax bill and sort of forced the hand.
Filing bills and passing bills is two different things.
But you also have
she's
Republicans now
reflecting-
stealing the idea
Yeah.
I mean,
and
it's
trying to make it
her
work.
or is it Charlene
So-
Oliver? Because they'll fight over
We're
who
one
brought
of the
that
few
bill
states
forward.
that still
Yes.
tax groceries in the way that we do.
Yes.
And I was surprised that one didn't get a little, at least out of committee, and it did not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have a Republican that actually is introducing the same bill,
Co-sponsored
right?
that, yeah.
No, this is a separate bill, a
At that
different bill.
time, a
But she
Republican
did have
did
a co-sponsor.
co-sponsor it. You needed some cleanup language in
I
it.
hate to,
and
but we're
so-
going to have to leave it
yeah.
there. We are flat out of time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you all for coming. I'll see you next week.